People they're attacking, but before that it was Asians and West Indians. Before that it was the Irish. Before the Irish it was the Jewish. And the reality is, when people talk about immigrants, if it weren't for immigrants you wouldn't have any railways built in this country. It was built by Irish immigrant labour. There are people quite rightly marching at the Conservative conference today, and there's been criticism about why we're not up there today. We've got RMT people marching up in the Conservative Party conference, but today's more important in my view when you've got to split yourself where you've got to go. Because why weren't they marching against the Conservatives 5 years, 10 years, 15 years and 20 years ago? And I've also got to say, has there been a chapter missing for 13 years? What did Labour do regarding the issues of racism and fascism? Yes! Because I remember a person called Blunkett, when he was the Home Secretary, who used the word swamping. And that's the issue it comes down to, because they've all jumped on the bandwagon as well. The reality is this: if you give everyone a job with decent pay, and you have a decent National Health Service, and you get unemployed builders off the dole to build houses for homelessness people to live in, you start then creating a social society where the fascists and racists can't live. You see, it's all right throwing a few bricks at a fascist at the end of the street, but it's the ideological issues that you've got to beat these people. Yes. And the issues, this, brothers and sisters, you see, 60, 70 years ago, in the Battle of Cable Street, was after a war where people in this country had been used in an imperial war between 1914 to 1918, about two imperial countries carving up the goods for their own particular countries. And when they come back from that war, they still had nothing. There was still no municipal housing. There was still no comprehensive schooling. There still wasn't a National Health Service, and there wasn't jobs and a welfare state. But the difference is, after going through what went through on the 30s of mass unemployment and poverty, when people went to war in 39 to 45, my father was born here at the back of Shadwell Street, back of Shadwell Station in Cornwall Street. His mother and father had their wedding in the pub at the corner, the House on Home. And I'll tell you what, when my father was called up to go to war in 1940, he said he weren't going. And the reason why he weren't going, because he never had a job, he never had a house. And as far as he was concerned, Hitler could come over here because he may be better off. But I'll tell you what 40 to 45 taught him was that when he come back, they had defeated fascism. Never again was they going to walk into a workplace and have some spotty-nosed 21-year-old foreman tell them about this and tell them about that. They weren't frightened anymore, and they had the confidence to build a new society. But I'll tell you, brothers and sisters, yes, we better start waking our ideas up. Yes. Because it's all right looking back, and quite right we look back about what took place 70 years ago. If we don't learn the lessons of the 30s and a depression, you're going to be facing a depression in this country, not just this country, but on a global basis. And what you're going to be faced up with is that when unemployment goes up, fascism goes up as well, just like a plague. The only reason Hitler got into power was 6 million unemployed people. That's the reason why Hitler got into power. And don't believe anyone who says it was a coup d'etat. These things happen under the circumstances that happen. So therefore, brothers and sisters, what we need to build is not just a campaign, but a broad movement against all aspects of racism and fascism. And we need to say that when a group of workers fight back to defend their community or their industry, they demand the entire support of the trade union movement. The likes of Ed Miliband, who on one hand says he wants to be attached to the trade union movement, attacks workers to defending their pay rises and their pensions, should hang his head in shame that he attacked workers not for going to strike on those particular days. So therefore, brothers and sisters, let's salute these tremendous people, and quite rightly they deserve saluting. But let's not just make out that only happened in the past. We've now got to go forward. We've got to turn around on Saturday at the demonstration that's taking place in Parliament against the EDL for a big turnout there. And wherever the fascists raise their head, we need to turn around and say, The Asians, West Indians, Irish, Jews are not our problem. I've got more in common with a Chinese labourer than I have with a City of London stockbroker down the road who intends to attack and pay our dignity. And therefore, brothers and sisters, I ask you not just to come out every 5 or 10 years or when the EDL come out on the BNP, but to raise a movement to beat fascism, destroy it and put a social society. That society can only be one of a socialist society built on what people want and not greed of the city and the bosses and the skivs down the road. Thank you very much.
Yes! Beter de film,